So I'm not the same pastor I was 30-some years ago. I used to, when I would preach, when I first started out, I couldn't actually look at people. Now I look right at you. I lost my concern about that somewhere along the way. Because I realized that for me, this is important. And I'm not afraid of you. You're probably not afraid of me. Maybe I should be. But I have changed, and I think I hope I've become more direct in my speaking, because I care about it. Another place where I've changed is this uncomfortable subject of money. Here it is, another minister asking for money. And what happened was, I was a kid like most other people and watched Ernest Angley and Kenneth Copeland and Baker, the PTL. I saw these TV shows with Christians asking for money and making promises and flying in private jets and living in big mansions, right? And so I was so much not wanting to be like that I thought, I'll be like John the Baptist, wear a hair shirt and live in the wilderness and never ask anybody for anything. And while there's a part of me that still feels that way, that I don't want to be a money grubber, at the same time, over the years, I have come to see that how Jesus and the church and how God's people did have to take care of what to do with money. You can't just say, I got nothing to do with that, and try to avoid the whole issue. The question is, can you be responsible with it? And so it is that this text today that I chose is from 2 Corinthians. And it is it's fairly lengthy, 1:15. But what you will see a couple of things in it. One of them is you will see that they made pledges. It says, the bountiful gift that you have promised. So in other words, there's that pledging thing. And then a voluntary gift and not as an extortion is another thing. So it's similar to us in some ways all these years later, because there's a kind of pledging and a voluntary aspect to it. And then also the idea that God is the source of all blessings, and to remember that. So those are three of the things that you might hear when I read this scripture to you. This is Paul's letter to the Corinthian church, and this is the second letter, which some scholars believe is kind of cobbled together from a few other letters which they stuck together. Here it goes. Now it is not necessary for me to write you about the ministry to the saints, the service you're going to give to the people of God. For I know your eagerness, which is the subject of my boasting about you to the people of Macedonia, saying that Achaia has been ready since last year, and your zeal has stirred up most of them. So Macedonia is up in the north of Greece, and Achaia is down on that little glove down on the bottom, down there. Not on the bottom coast, but in that right where Corinth is, right on that land bridge, that thinny little land bridge there. So it's northern Greece and southern Greece, if you will. So you could almost say, my boasting to you, to the people of the north, say that the people of the south have been ready since last year. And Corinthians, these are the people of the south. So he's talking to their church. But I am sending the brothers in order that your boasting about you may not prove to have been empty in this case, so that you may be ready, as I said you would be. Otherwise, if some of the Macedonians come with me and find that you are not ready, we'd be humiliated. In other words, you can count on these people, they're going to come through, and then he says, if he goes down there and he goes, oops, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed, I thought they were ready, but they aren't. So he's just talking about being faithful to their pledges and their promises. To say nothing to you in this undertaking, he would be humiliated, he said, if he, so he wanted to be ready. We're going to be taking an offering, basically, is what he's saying. So I thought it necessary to urge the brothers to go on ahead of you and arrange in advance for this bountiful gift that you have promised, so that it may be ready as a voluntary gift and not as an extortion. So the idea was that they would collect this money, and then when he got down there, he would pick up the money and he would take it where it was supposed to go. Now, they didn't have checks back then. My understanding is checks was something that was in China, and then the Muslims brought it from China to Europe, and during the way they really came to the fore during the Crusades, when the Christians would say you didn't have to actually carry money with you, which was very dangerous to do. You would write a banknote, and the Templars would have money down there, so you could just say, I'm good for this much money up here, for that much money down there, and so checks came into being. But at the time of Paul, you actually carried real money around with you. So usually you had to have a couple of you, and you needed to have some sticks and stones ready to defend yourself if you were traveling. So he was going to collect this money, and he was going to take it. Normally what they did then, as we understand it, is to take it to the poorest part of the church, which was actually in Jerusalem. The point is this, that the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the one who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each of you must give as you have made up your mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion. In other words, nobody has to do anything they don't want to do. So that's the same way today. It's beautiful how this has stayed the same. And we don't want to make people unhappy, but if you believe in the program, if you believe in the church, and you believe in the mission, you're free to give bountifully or sparingly, but there you go. And God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance. So the underlying thing is that everything we have ultimately comes from God, and there's a great gratitude for all the things that we enjoy. If you think it didn't come from God, please know that it could be taken away from you any instant by death, by disease, by an accident, and so it goes. And so we may work very, very hard, but some people are not privileged to be able to work very hard because they're in circumstances where no matter how hard they work, the opportunities are not there. There are people who they can't work hard because of some disability or some difficulty that they have. And God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything you may share abundantly in every good work. As it is written, and there it says share abundantly in every good work. So it's not just money, it's giving yourself too. It's your service. And this is what we see very much here in this church. When you gave, for example, all of you who made salads yesterday, all of you who climbed on the roof, all of you who mowed the lawn and raked the leaves, all of you who were the many, many ways that people give here, not just in finances, but in service to one another and to the community. And then it says, as it is written, he scatters abroad, he gives to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. So it's not just investing in money, it's investing in righteousness. So to increase in your godliness, in your holiness, in your spirituality. And the reason why that's a good thing is because the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Who doesn't need and want love, joy, and peace? And so you feel better about yourself if you're a good faith player. I bring a bunch of grapes. I might bring crackers. I might bring potato chips. I don't know what I'm going to bring to the potluck dinners because I'm not really big on cooking. So I run down to Kroger or Walmart and grab something quick, right? Because I don't want to come there empty-handed. Even though you have told me, Pastor Ed, it's okay, we know you're busy, you're working today, or something like that, or we know you're a lousy cook, so we don't want your food anyway. Whatever. But the point is, I don't want to show up empty-handed because I want to be a good faith participant. I want my oar in the water when other people's oars are in the water. I want to be rowing beside you. And so this is what I think it's saying, that you'll feel better about yourself if you are a good faith participant in the community. You will be enriched in every way for your great generosity, which will produce thanksgiving to God through us. For the rendering of this mystery not only supplies the needs of the saints, but also overflows with many thanksgivings to God. And how beautiful it is. Isn't it beautiful when you help someone and they thank you, and you know that you have been a messenger of God, and you are a visible expression of God's love and grace to them. What a powerful, beautiful position to be in, that you get to be the representative of God's love and grace to someone else. And then through the testing of this ministry, you glorify God by your obedience to the confession of the gospel of Christ, and by the generosity of your sharing with them and with all others, while they long for you and pray for you. Because of the surpassing grace of God that He has given you, thanks be to God for His indescribable gift. So that's a reminder that no matter how much we give, we are receivers, first of all. Offerings go back long before the tent and the temple. Early on, people would pile up a little rock here or there and sacrifice a sheep or lay some grain out. In Genesis, in the very early story of Cain and Abel, the one sacrifices a sheep, the other one puts some grain on a stone and said, "This is for you, God." And they had this idea that you'd burn up some grain, and like God ate grain or something that was burned. It's like the smoke. And there's places where it says it was a pleasing odor to the Lord. The ancients sometimes believed that gods ate the offerings that people gave by burning it up. They transmuted it from material reality into spiritual reality, and the gods ate it. And so many people believe that way, and that's part of our tradition too. The story of Noah's Ark, from the non-Jewish, non-Christian perspective, was that, because this flood story is around, is that the gods got really hungry after they got rid of the people because no one was making offerings. So that I think it was Utpanashin in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the one in the Babylonian myth of the flood, the gods all gather around, they're so hungry, and then they go, "We're never going to do that again," which is different than our story, where one God says He's never going to do that again. But we also know that our God does not eat the smoke of burnt money, or sheep, or grain. That's how we understand God is spirit and doesn't need to eat anything, and God does not require, in a sense, anything from us in order to be God. Nothing can actually add to God or take away from God, because God is complete in every way, prior to, within, and beyond all of existence. So that's enough philosophy. But let's go on to the altar, the tent, the temple. Offerings were made, and let's talk about Jesus. Jesus had a treasurer. They had a common purse. And people could give to Jesus in a couple of different ways. They could actually bring money, which they would put in a common purse, and then Jesus and the disciples would use it to buy things. When they fed the 5,000, and they said, "Should we spend 200 denarii in order to feed all these people?" Maybe they had 200 denarii, I don't know. 200 silver coins in a pouch that someone had donated. Because Jesus wasn't making the money by carpentry. He was going around teaching. And so people were donating to him, and they had enough money to do things. Another time they say, "Should we take some money and donate it to the poor?" So apparently there was a custom that sometimes, if maybe they had too much money in the purse, or maybe Jesus just said, "Give some money to that person." We think about Jesus healing the sick, and the blind can see and the lame can walk. But apparently there was also the custom of Jesus giving money to people who needed it. Imagine that. So it was very much a part of Jesus' life. And the other thing he would do with this hospitality is he would often invite himself to a wealthy person's house, say a tax collector, and say, "May I come to your house for lunch, me and my 120 friends?" It takes a lot of money to have and a house big enough to take care of that. So I'm just telling you. And then when he died, Joseph of Arimathea, the story is, had enough money, had a tomb, got things set up. The spices that were given, the one woman that put spices on Jesus, someone said, that's expensive spices. We could have spent that for missions instead of for our, just putting some of that oil on Jesus. And so this is, money was a part of Jesus' ministry, I'm saying. Yes, it really was. And offerings were a long part of religious life. There was also in the early church, originally, there were no churches. And so they met sometimes in the graveyards, because that was a place where they could say, where are we going to meet? And they met outside. In some of the stories, they met early in the morning before it was time to go to work, and then they met in the evening when work was done. And that communion was something they did every day. Because what communion was for some of them the only meal they got that day. Because it wasn't just a bread and cup. It was like a potluck every single day. And it was a way that poor people that didn't have much family or didn't have any family or did have family but knew family was more, worked together to support each other, and it's called variance reduction. The idea is that people took care of each other in the early church, just like we do today. We are here to take care of each other. And so sometimes then, if there was a wealthy person who was a part of the community, then they could meet in a person's house. And you can see in the New Testament in a number of letters where it says, to the church that meets in Lydia's house. And often it was women who were mentioned, which is amazing because you'd think it would be Fred or John or Jack or Bill. But instead, these are ladies' names that are often given for the house where they meet. So there were wealthy women. It also says there were women that supported Jesus' ministry along the way. I'm not sure all that was involved. My point is, in this letter from Paul, you can see pledging was done, free will, in other words, it wasn't coerced. People could give what they wanted. They didn't have, but again, giving was a part of it. There's also another issue, and that is that Jesus taught the value of proportionate giving. Because normally what would happen is if a person was able to give $1,000, but they were a millionaire, it's still, heck, it's $1,000. But someone else could only give $100, but they were on minimum wage, so then you get that question of who really gave more. Jesus affirmed when a widow who had very little money just dropped in like 2 pennies into the poor box to help others, and he said that that woman gave more than the others. Now, it wasn't that, it's simply that Jesus understands that some people have more and some people have less, and people do what they think is right and do what they can. And Jesus understood that, instead of just trying to hit on the big gifts. But it wasn't that big gifts didn't happen and weren't valued. It's just that in Jesus' case, most people only see those gifts and overlook the widow's little gift. And Jesus did not. Where do we see our giving? We saw it yesterday at our funeral, giving to service. We saw it in climbing on the roof. We see it in the Repair Cafe, acts of service, acts of ministry, acts of love, acts of kindness, but also in, yes, keeping the lights on, paying for me, for which I thank you so much. I'm trying to pay off my house, and you guys give me money twice a month, and I try to be faithful to you, to be worthy of your support. And then there's Karen in the office, and there's Jeff, and there's Norma, and so we get some thank you from you, and we pray that we will be faithful to you. And unlike the TV evangelists where you might not be able to find where their money went, and because it's their own, sometimes churches have a polity where the minister actually owns the church, My understanding is there's a few churches in Toledo that have that polity. The minister is like an independent church. The minister owns the church, the minister owns the building, and the minister gets the money. And he can do what he wants, or she. And so this is not how it is here. All the money's in the budget. You vote for the budget. You can ask where the money is, and it's, as much as possible, it's all accounted for. So this is a safe and good place. So our church is a place where we can see giving and generosity and faithfulness. Particularly these last few years, you have given above and beyond anything that I could have imagined in this campaign to fix the roof and repaint and redo everything. I am so blessed and pleased. I also gave more, but you gave even more. I am so, so happy that, that you all supported our being in this house of worship to be a place of God for one another and for God. Today is halfway between Crystal Night and Veterans Day. November 9th is Crystal Night, and I tie it with Veterans Day because Crystal Night was the night that the Nazis attacked Jewish shops and destroyed their places of business. They wrote, you know, Jew go home, or painted it, you know, and they just trashed the place because their idea was that Germany was for Germans and Jews weren't real Germans. Even if they were born in Germany and spoke German, they didn't, and so there was this hatred stirred up against them, which we all know had the Holocaust at the end of it. Like millions, 6 million men, women, children, and Frank, you know, many, many, just horribly, industrially murdered by the state. So, Crystal Night was a part of that process, of that slide into a nation eating itself alive. And then Veterans Day, which was originally Armistice Day, was the 11th month, the 11th hour, the 11th minute when they officially stopped killing each other. After 4 years of killing each other, Christians killing Christians, Lutherans killing Lutherans, and Catholics killing Catholics, and Episcopalians and Methodists and what have you, lined up across Europe. The Germans and the Austrians and the Hungarians, and then the English and the French, and then later us, bam, 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 dead, 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 and just so horribly, horribly killed, because it was like a 11-to-1 defensive to offensive ratio. They had machine guns, they had artillery, and they had no man's land, and just people got thrown to their deaths stupidly. I'm going to say it because it's true. Stupidly run out into no man's land to attack the other people, and very few of them even got to the other side to do some attacking. So Lord have mercy. So at the end of like Vietnam syndrome after Vietnam, when they said we don't want to have people be turned against war, well, there was a big turn against war after World War I. And so they had this Armistice Day. And we don't celebrate it here like most of Europe does. Maybe Europe remembers it better than us. We turned it to Veterans Day. We did that because during the Cold War, we didn't want people to be afraid to say the Russians are the enemy and to be against the military. So it got changed from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And I respect and appreciate our veterans, and I want to say that right now and invite firemen, EMTs, police, and former military or current military, would you stand? Let's have Benny stand up first as our military. Do we have anyone else that's military here, former military? Okay. And now we have our EMT, and there's our Air Force man. All right. Anyone else that's military and fire, police? Thank you. Thank you so much. We as a society, we need servants who protect us. And so thank you. But I want to remember Armistice Day. Now tomorrow at 11 o'clock, the 11th minute, you'll probably be doing something else and it'll pass. So you won't have your moment of silence. So let's do it now. I have my 1-minute timer. So this is ahead of time for tomorrow at 11:11. To remember that originally it was about let's stop this insanity of war if possible, and let's mourn for all of the dead. And let's hope and pray to never do it again, although they went ahead and did it because of, Adolf. Here we go, 1 minute. Let's remember our veterans, particularly Armistice Day. Gave some beautiful silence there, didn't we? So tomorrow at 11:11, when you forget because you're working or you're busy or something's up and it passes and you go, darn, I missed it. You didn't miss it because you got it here. And the last thing, of course, to remember when it comes to generosity is not outgiving God. And we see Jesus Christ, who gave himself, as giving his entire life for us. He lived and died for us. And so whatever we do in terms of support and ministry and meaning of our life and generosity, we never can outgive God, as we see in Jesus Christ. And we also see many times when we do offer our time, our talents, our abilities, our friendship, our service, and our money, we discover rich blessings which outweigh what we have given. So let's turn to the last hymn, We Are Called.